Good Sunday evening, everyone. It's David Schlotthauer here with a very important weather forecast for February the 2nd, 2025. In this update, we have multiple snowstorms and ice storms coming for the Great Lakes and the Northeast over the next 5 to 10 days. And then a rapid weakening of the stratospheric polar vortex will wreak havoc with our weather into mid-February. Now, taking a look at the latest European model, there are big weather pattern changes coming, so I want you all to please pay very close attention to the forecast, as I'm going to try my very best at walking through the forecast through the next 7 to 10 days, because there's a lot of action that is going to be going on, especially across the Intermountain West, the Northern Plains, into the Great Lakes, and the Northeast. So looking at that forecast for Tuesday afternoon here, we're skipping ahead because there is going to be a lot of heavy rainfall, strong winds, high elevation snow for the Sierra mountain range as well as lower foothills. This has been a thing for a while now. We're going to get a lot of flooding out of this, strong winds, you name it, over the Intermountain West, but that system is going to be redeveloping as it gets into the northern plains. So as we put this into motion, you can see by the time now taking a look at the European model here for Tuesday afternoon, there's going to be a lot of action that you're about to see on this map, so I want you all to please pay very close attention to your area, because we're going to have multiple snowstorms and ice storms coming for these areas. So looking at Tuesday afternoon here, California is getting clobbered with heavy rainfall, heavy snow for the higher elevations. We're talking about strong winds yet again as this secondary atmospheric river moves overhead. So keep that in mind. If you're in the foothills of the Sierra, some of the higher elevations, we're going to have a lot of orographic effects. So therefore, we are looking at substantial rainfall totals on the order of a foot or more in some locations. All right, like Lassen Park could get some significant rainfall totals, and we could be looking at several feet of snowfall, possibly as much as 8 feet of snow in the higher elevations of the California Sierra Madre mountain range. And then this is going to redevelop as it gets into Wednesday, okay? So that surface low basically skips over and moves into the Dakotas and Nebraska by that afternoon hour of Wednesday, and therefore we're looking at a lot of ice accumulation potentially over Iowa as well as northern Illinois, northern Indiana, and this is only going to escalate as we go into Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. Look at all of this pink on the screen. This is all ice accumulation on the European model, and then to the north we have that snow. In fact, snow is not really going to be a big issue with this. It's going to be the big talk about how much ice actually accumulates with this winter storm as it swings through the Great Lakes into the Northeast. That gets into the Northeast by Thursday afternoon. That's the first system, by the way. That's going to bring in the best chances of heavy snow and some icy conditions. But to the south here, we're likely to just see rainfall. And then the second system moves into the Intermountain West again. So we're looking at storm number 2 here for California. Again, feet of snow, inches of rainfall for many locations. And again, another threat for strong winds and maybe some power outages with some flood concerns to go along with that. And that gets into the Intermountain West, such as in Nevada, into northern Ohio, or northern Idaho. Oh yeah, northern Utah, excuse me there. Oh my gosh, got my states confused. Into Wyoming. And then watch what happens when this gets into the high plains for the latter part of the weekend. Look at this. We have another winter storm that develops here by Saturday, February the 8th, 2025. So this is storm number 2 on our list of storms to watch for. Heavy snowfall. This is going to contain more snowfall. And then, of course, anything in between, we are looking at sleet and freezing rain here, according to the European model. That would cover northern Indiana, northern Illinois, northern Ohio, into portions of Pennsylvania, northern Missouri, as well as southeastern portion there of Iowa. This is the second system, folks. There's going to be more ice accumulation with this, and eventually that gets into the Northeast by Sunday early morning. delivering more heavy snow, more ice accumulation. Repeated storms, folks. This is a really, really busy pattern that we're entering into, especially as we get closer to the middle of February. And then maybe another snowstorm here, a third one, mainly though to the south of Pennsylvania, including for portions there of New Jersey as well as Delaware, into portions there of Virginia and West Virginia. And then that moves through before a fourth one. Yeah, it's just storm after storm after storm. That is going to be the problem here. And not only that, the Pacific Northwest, Northern California, going to get more rain, more snow, but especially here across the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic, it's going to be a very busy period here. I'm betting on that right now. Looks very likely based on most of the models that we're looking at here, showing a really, really active wintry weather pattern setting up, especially for the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast. And so this is for Wednesday morning on the 12th of February, showing some heavy snowfall for Kentucky, for West Virginia, into the state of Virginia, North Carolina, getting quite a bit of freezing rain and snow. A little more uncertain down here because of the degree of cooling that happens. If we get more warmer air advection, maybe lesser of a snow and ice threat here, and maybe more further north. But on this model, we're seeing quite a bit of impacts here, possibly significant impacts with that. That moves through before yet another storm. This is 5 storms lining up out here by the 14th of February. And this one doesn't look to be quite as impactful because a lot of the snow will be falling in higher latitudes. But still, another winter storm on the docket here on the Euro model, being pretty aggressive on this. And then that moves through before maybe we'll have to watch for more snow towards the end of the forecast. So basically through the middle of February, through the 14th and the 15th, we could be looking at just multiple snowstorms, storm after storm. It's a train of winter storms, and then much colder air coming in again. There are evidence of that now it looks like we're going back into the pattern that we were in early to mid-January. Literally another polar vortex going to sink southward into the Midwest and the Northern Plains. Now, the GFS model, not quite as aggressive as the European model, but nonetheless, we have to look at this. That's my job here in this video, is to make sure you all are ready for any intense winter storm that develops. So let's go forward here, and as you can see, there is the storm for Northern California. This swings through over the next couple of days through even Wednesday. We get a brief break on Wednesday night into Thursday, at least for California, before another winter storm comes in. But look at what this model shows. Lesser ice accumulation for Thursday with that storm, but it looks to be more significant over Pennsylvania, over New York City. Yes, very populated area with snow in the mix. So you go from snow maybe to freezing rain, and then back over to maybe seeing some snow after that once the cooler air arrives. The Intermountain West looking at more snow coming in for Idaho, for Montana, for Oregon, and Northern California before the second system. Actually, the second system had moved through already by this point, and it looks just kind of in and out of snow showers from time to time through Saturday morning. Now, second system impacts the Northeast. Not much going on up here in the Great Lakes region. And then let's put this into motion even further. There's that next snowstorm, especially down here in West Virginia and portions of Maryland, Delaware area. That's going to be the system that we're going to need to watch a little closely. How far north, how much moisture gets flung onto the northern side of that system. That moves through, and then maybe a more impactful system by the time we go into Tuesday next week. Not this coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. That would be for the 11th and the 12th of February. All right, so again, we're entering a really busy pattern with that heavy snowfall and ice. And look at this, dark blue on your screen by Wednesday afternoon over New York, over Pennsylvania. Pretty intense winter storm here with heavy snowfall accumulations yet again as that rolls through. And then maybe another one after that. not as significant, but still going to bring in snow for those areas. And then we will see what comes on after this. Looks to be another heavy dose of a winter storm as it comes out of the Pacific Northwest into the high plains, but really far out. That's as we get closer, we'll see if that actually pans out, but really far out at this point. This is the 17th of February, FYI. Now, because we're looking at multiple snowstorms, folks, I'm not going to get into the exact totals with each winter storm. All I'm going to show you right now, until we get more clarification data into our models, we're going to be using the ensemble forecast. All 51 different versions of the model give us an average of outcome. So most of the ensembles show pretty decent heavy snowfall over the Northeast. I mean, New York City over the next 2 weeks could get 12 to 18, maybe even a couple of feet of snowfall over that period. Some of the higher elevations of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire could get a couple of feet of snowfall in the next couple of weeks. The Intermountain West definitely going to have a lot of snowfall at least through the weekend, through early part of Saturday, so that's taken into consideration here. But what you all need to understand is, yes, a really snowy pattern is setting up here, especially, and again, I cannot emphasize it enough, from the Great Lakes over points east into the Northeast New England area is going to see the most snow out of this. So now, what about rainfall totals? This is really important. Areas to the north, don't worry about that. It's going to be mainly in the form of snow and freezing rain, but areas to the south where it's warm enough, you're going to get mainly rain. And so a really wet pattern down here in the southeast, the deep south, and the mid-Atlantic. We're looking at anywhere between 2 to 5 to maybe even 6 inches of rainfall over the next 2 weeks, according to our European ensemble blend of forecasts. And then, of course, California taking in on the cake with the most rainfall there, up to maybe 16 inches of rainfall over the next couple of weeks, including for the Pacific Northwest, for portions of Idaho and Montana, likely in the form of snow here because it's going to be cold enough. But just FYI, there's going to be a lot of QPF amounts here over the next couple of weeks. So now, looking at your precipitation anomaly, everything here is above average. So yes, more frequent snowstorms than usual, especially the further north you go. Wetter than average conditions in the form of rain over Georgia, the Ozarks. Above average rainfall across portions of, say, California, Nevada, in the form of snow, though. If you're in Idaho and Montana and Oregon, it's going to be snowing there. So above average snow and above average rainfall in this region, and then near normal precipitation values, perhaps over the Dakotas and Minnesota. Now, as far as the amount of freezing rain goes, let's zoom in on this because this is a little concerning for a lot of you that are watching this video. So this is through the next 144 hours, okay? This is the 18Z European model forecast, okay? So this is over the next 5 to 7 days, and what it's painting a picture here is anywhere between about 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch, with some areas possibly up to 1/2 an inch of ice accumulations, especially in densely populated areas like Chicago, Detroit, Michigan, northern Indiana, Toledo, Ohio. Going to get a lot of ice potentially out of these couple of winter storms that roll through. Pennsylvania and New York, you're looking at anywhere between about 0.05 of an inch to maybe about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch of ice accumulation. So keep that in mind. This is a pretty large area, by the way. This is not a narrow corridor like we had with our previous winter storms. This is going to be covering a huge area. Now, looking at our 12Z output, you can see here, if we go a little further out, maybe more additional ice. So some areas here could get up to 1 inch of ice over the next 6 to 7 days, perhaps even the next 8 days. Now, another concerning aspect to this forecast is, like we had in January, will be the formidable amount of cold Arctic air that comes in out of Canada, out of higher latitudes. And I will show you why here in just a little while on why this is going to be a problem. So looking at your temperature anomaly first, this is basically departures from normal. So if you're in the blue, the green, and the pink and purple colors, those are temperatures below average. If you're in the orange, red, dark red, and grayish, kind of whatever color you want to think about that, apricot color, we're looking at really far above average temperatures. Okay, temperatures will be above normal given your location and the time of year. Okay, this is early February, folks, and I'll tell you what, it's definitely going to be cold out there. Not right away, but to the northwest it's going to be very chilly. Now, looking at the weekend here, you can see what the European model is showing. Big pattern change coming by early next week with much colder temperatures arriving, with temperatures that could be 20 to 30 degrees below average. And look at this continues. Look at all the way across mainly the high plains. And then perhaps by the middle of February, there is that Arctic blast that gets into lower latitudes. We will need to watch this really closely in days to come because it's going to be happening with a very weak polar vortex. The overall stratospheric flow is going to reverse. It's going to break down, and we are going to get potentially some of the coldest air of the winter season, especially in higher latitudes. Okay, and that continues all the way through the 15th and the 17th of February. So now, why is this Arctic air mass going to actually be a problem now? Now, looking at the 10 millibar height anomaly, this is similar to our 500 millibar height anomaly that I've shown in past videos, but this is looking at the stratosphere. So this is very high up at 70 to 80,000 feet, and you're probably asking me, why are you looking at that level? We don't live at 70 to 80,000 feet above the surface. Well, this has an indirect consequence when it comes to the lower polar vortex. Think of a wedding cake, right? You have three different vortexes, the very high levels, the mid levels, and even the lower levels. And what we're looking at here is the very high levels of the atmosphere. And why this is important is watch what happens here. By the time we go into Wednesday into Thursday, the polar vortex is really stable, kind of elongated, pretty much stretched out here with our height anomaly. But look what's going to happen here by early next week. Boom! There's a split in that polar vortex. We have one lobe of that vortex going into Hudson Bay, into the northeast. We have another lobe going into Siberia. Classic pattern here that portrays to extreme Arctic outbreaks across Canada into the northern U.S. And at times, if it's intense enough, we can get some of the colder air that spills into the lower 48, like the Midwest and the deep South. In this case, that probably is going to end up happening here because this is pretty well separated. This is a split. One lobe here, and look at this sudden stratospheric warming event over Alaska, coinciding with a 500 millibar ridge in higher latitudes. And I'll show that to you here in a second. And then it kind of remerges, but instead of it remerging and rebundling up here in higher latitudes over the Arctic, it might rebundle down here in Hudson Bay, and that could really wreak havoc in terms of our winter weather pattern for the rest of February. So this is how it looks here on the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast on the European model. In simple terms, the higher the heights are, the warmer the temperatures in general are going to be, okay? So there's a ridge here, we have a ridge over here. This is, by the way, Alaska. This is Siberia over here, and this is Greenland that I've circled in here. So we have trough, ridge, and as we move this forward, watch what happens to the Arctic. Watch what happens here as we go into February the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. Notice how we get a lot of high latitude blocking. Okay, notice right here, we got a ridge here, we got a ridge near Green Bay. This is a very negative AO, all right, a very negative Arctic oscillation, also a very negative NAO that's in place. What this is going to lead to is troughs in lower latitudes. So we have an area of lower pressure here, lower pressure over here, that's in the northern United States, and then this is over the northeast Atlantic, this is over Germany, over Ireland, that kind of area. So we have four lobes here connecting the dots that are going to allow colder air from higher latitudes to sink southward, and that is what's going to unleash the veil here of really cold temperatures as we go into mid-February and perhaps even beyond that, because look at not much changes here with very big Arctic lows that develop here with a very strong Arctic high. But anyways, if you found this video really helpful, detailed, and informative, Please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the like button, and share this video with their family and friends on social media. As always, I will have to do 2 uploads if necessary on this big weather pattern change that is coming. As always, when I do these 2 uploads, I usually have one out very early in the morning, followed by one in the afternoon hour. So make sure you do subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and also leave a like in the video as well. It really does help out a lot with the YouTube channel because I do enjoy doing these a lot. And also be sure to check out our Weather Force Discord server, link in the description below this video, along to go with my YouTube channel survey. There's a link to that as well below this video. But otherwise, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with you more tomorrow morning, possible. Not a guarantee yet.